Hey, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're listening to this, but welcome to the International Code Council Region 1 and Region 1 Radio Show. My name is Tim Spears, and I'm the host of Region 1 Radio. Region 1 was established in 2014, and we are made up of 3 states, California, Hawaii, and Nevada. That includes 32 ICC chapters. We are dedicated to excellence in education and engagement to promote a safer environment by bringing individuals together. These videos and podcast series were designed to highlight individuals of the chapters that make up our region and help share their experiences. Today on the show, I'm excited to have join me Valerie Evans, building official with the Building Safety and Fire Prevention Division for the City of North Las Vegas. She was also named the Code Official of the Year by International Code Council in 2020. Hi, Valerie. Welcome to ICC Region 1 Radio. And how are you today in the nice city of Las Vegas? It's got to be warm there, I would hope.
Hi. Hey, Tim. It is nice here. It's not really warm. I think we're seasonally average right now, so maybe the highs in the 60s, but we're surely not like the East Coast. We're not negative. I mean, you're in California, right. So you know what our weather is like. So, yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of, right now it's 60 and sunny, but you never know. It could turn, cloudy and stormy, but it'll get down into the 30s. Like last night, I think it was 39. So when I got up to work out and went out to the garage, it was pretty chilly. And so had to turn on the space heater a little bit, and which really didn't seem to help at all. So, but no, I can definitely understand that. So, well, thank you for joining us. We are into the new year. And so with that, I've been seeking out new guests and so I was excited for you to, have you join us on this episode. So can you share a little bit, of your background with all of our listeners?
I can. I am an old electrician. And so I came from San Diego. I was born and raised in San Diego, 28 years. Sometimes people ask me, how come I moved to the desert when I lived in San Diego?
Right.
But I started doing electrical when I was 18, and I was working on a job. We were building custom homes, and this company that I worked for, Barker Development, they kind of loaned me out to this electrical contractor. And I ran with it. He offered me a position if I ever needed it. When the work ran out with the company I was working for, I went to work as an electrician when I was 18, and I did electrical professionally until like 2001 when I came to work at the city. And so now I've been the family electrician for the last 20 years, and it's who you have to do electrical for. So I moved to Vegas in 1996, and I worked as an electrician for a while here. I did some notable projects here where I ran the electrical crews here, and then I had an opportunity to come to work at the city of North Las Vegas. I came in as an inspector trainee, and I did 11 years as an inspector, and then we all jump out of the field, right? So old contractors become inspectors, old inspectors become plans examiners, and old plans examiners become consultants. So right. I jumped into plans exam in 2012, and in 2016 I was appointed as a building official.
Wow. So I guess I kind of want to go back to kind of how you got your start as an electrician. So what, as you were graduating high school, I was talking a little bit with Sarah Yerkes, and she was talking about different things about how to maybe, help with the younger profession or the younger individuals and get them more involved and some of the different things that they're trying to do at ICC. So how did you become an electrician at 18? I'm always curious about that.
I like I said, I was working for this company, and we were just building some custom homes. And I remember some important stuff happening, like the night that they left at the end of the day of this day, somebody left the stain rags in a trash can right next to this brand new custom home, and we weren't home before the stain rags ignited, and so we were doing these custom homes, and this electrician showed up, and he needed some help on a job up in Del Mar. In California and Del Mar, and so they loaned me out. They said, well, you can have her to go scrap this job, and it wasn't necessarily electrical. I was going to go scrap the job for lumber and clean the job up, and so, I've never been told that I wasn't like a complete go-getter. I've never been, accused of not working as hard as I can, and so I went and I worked on this job. And this electrician, this was Performance Electric, he said, hey, if you ever, need a job, let me know. And I told him like I had a really good job. It was a family-owned company. I was happy there. And he gave me his card and said, if you ever run out of work, give me a call. And so 6 months later, they ran out of work. I gave them a call, and I jumped right into industrial. Like I jumped right into like the America's Cup races at in San Diego Bay and the Top Gun building at Miramar Naval Air Station, and really jumped right into like those hard first lessons of being an electrician, and then just kept doing it. I mean, like I said, now it's the get to, want to, have to. I either get to do electric for you, I want to do electric for you, or I have to do electric for you. And sometimes it's all three of those. Sometimes, you're somebody that I get to, want to, and have to. But I'm learning the older I get that, I'm not as good as I was. I'm not as fast as I was. And so, there's a time to, like you mentioned, the, that upcoming individual. And we all know, like, the state of government and workers and retirement and all that. And so having programs to bring younger people into government, into enforcement, even if it comes through the trades, it's such a big, important thing to do so that we can get people in our industry.
Yeah, and that's been one of the things that, how do we recruit, right? How do we get people that, find it very valuable? I've been talking to a lot of friends of mine in and around the region, and they're having a incredibly hard time right now trying to be able to find quality, staff members, because the economy is pretty good. And so the private sector is really, pulling a lot of people from the public sector. And we're definitely struggling in that regard. And I'm sure that you're probably seeing it in Las Vegas too. I mean, with the amount of building that is going on right now, it's hard to find good quality people. And how do you recruit people? And that's been one of the difficulties that I've seen throughout my career, is just being able to recruit people. We're getting a little bit older too. I mean, I know that I'm not as agile as I once was. And so, how do we recruit some of those younger individuals into this type of field? It's always a challenge, I think.
I think the truth is like recruitment, right? Like for me and my perspective, during the downturn of the economy, city of North Las Vegas went from like 44 inspectors to 4. And in that time, all those inspectors that left, they reinvented themselves. They became truck drivers and teachers, and they went back out because there was no work, there was no industry at that time. And so so then I remember, like, after 4 or 5 years, that first footing inspection that came through, that first new building out of the ground, and then coming back up, and we've not really, come back to that time. That was a hard time to begin with, but we do have to recruit. That's that key word, is to recruit somebody, get them in and get them trained up so that they can be that succession plan of ours.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to build that pathway, and, hopefully we can get there. Now, one of the things I did want to kind of, you've already talked a little bit about the city, but can you provide a little bit of a background on the city and the department?
The city of North Las Vegas, I cannot tell you exactly when it chartered, but I can tell you that the city's first adopted code was the 1975 code, the 1975 Uniform Building Code. And I think we're right about 110 square miles and like 250,000 people. And through the years, it's that change that takes place as you go through, and that perspective that takes place with the changing of staff and personalities. And so I came into the city in 2001, and so the people that have been here, I mean, there's not a whole lot of people that hasn't been here more than 10 years, right? Because 10 more years than me, and they're retired. So it's North Las Vegas is an amazing place to work. It's a small, tight-knit community and government where, everybody knows everybody. Like, it's not unheard of for me to run up to the mayor's office and say, hey, mayor, or hey, Ryan, hey, city manager, like, can I do this? And not have a lot of red tape to have to get to the other side of it. There's not a lot of bureaucracy in that to where we can get a lot of things done because we're so small and everybody knows everybody.
Okay. Now, one thing, and I probably should touch on it before we go too much further. You mentioned being able, being an electrician, then coming in, being an inspector, and then doing plan review, and now being the building official. Out of those, all those different phases of your career, which one have you found to be the best? I don't want to say the best. I mean, because I think they all have great qualities, but the one you enjoyed the most.
You're funny, Tim. So the only way I can explain that is by saying, if you're a person that's not like, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm government, you're not, entitlement or otherwise, or, coming from industry and becoming a government official, coming from industry to be an inspector, you come into the trade, you come into government, the public sector, and you come in knowing that you can make everything work because you did it for so long out there in the industry with your tools on. And so when I first became an inspector, I came in with a couple certs. I became a commercial combo, and so pretty quickly I had a full commercial certification, and it really became for me about how can we come together to understand the code and get to the other end of it, get to the other side where we're compliant, we're life safety, we occupy our buildings, we get out safely, and so when you're working in the field, you're working on the level of contractors and subcontractors. And, occasionally you might talk to an engineer, an architect, or they might, send a building owner out to do a walkthrough. And you always know who they are because they wear the real clean white hard hats and, they have their ties on and stuff. And so, but that kind of a relationship with the industry as it relates to the contractors, that world, the actual workers, it's really a togetherness that we have to get through that. So, when I was in the field, I wasn't like throw the code book down and tell you that it was written in blood. I was like, let's go look and try to find the right answer, and then when I came into the field, as a plans examiner, in 2012, I became a plans examiner, and I sat at the counter and the back of the counter for 5 years as plans exam, I think 5 years. Then you're dealing with the architects and the engineers and the developers and on a higher level, the contractors as it relates to management. And so those relationships change. And you grow with that, right? You grow with the ability to talk to, I'm not an engineer, I'm a good electrician. You want to know about electrical, I'm your girl, but I'm not a structural engineer, and so you manage your way through those conversations to where it's still, I'm not right and you're not wrong, but we're still trying to build a building and to develop a property and to give back to the community. And so so that was interesting, like having those higher level types of communication and meetings and stuff. And as appointed to the building official, it's really allowed me to, the way I look at it is, there's a code and for me, it's life safety, structural, and accessibility. Like those are the most important things, right? You have to be accessible, you have to be structural, and you have to have life safety. And so how I get to the end of that, how I get there is really based in my own management skills and how I can work with the customer to get there. At the end of the day, as long as we're code compliant and the building is structurally life safety and accessibility safe, then it doesn't matter how I get there. And so I don't want to say like I have a reputation, but like we really work with people here and we keep jobs moving forward. And after that downturn in the economy where people came back and they had to build buildings and they had to have tenants and people were dependent on coming back to the world. And so based on that, I think our perspective really shifted to, how can we all work together? How can I help you? How can these buildings be built and be compliant? And, I have an example that I can give you. It's the Amazon Robotics Center, right? It's a 2.3 million square foot building, and there's one right across the street from each other. And I kind of tout one of our programs because we have a self-cert program, and I kind of tout that program by saying from the data permit to the data C of O was like 10 months, 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
From the data permit to the data C of O for a 2.3 million square foot robotics center.
Holy smokes.
And so it's how do you navigate through that? How does Public Works, come in? How does planning and zoning come in? How do all the city departments come together so that that developer and that end user, that tenant can have the building on the dates that they need them and continue to move forward so that everybody wins?
Right.
So I didn't answer your question. I think I don't know that I have like a favorite.
A favorite?
Yeah. To this day, I still love doing little electrical for people, and I love being the face of the building safety and fire prevention division.
Yeah.
I could go out and do inspections or look at some plans, but I love being the building official. It's a good gig. It's a really good opportunity to show how much our team at North Las Vegas shines.
Yeah, and I think that I'm kind of the same way with you. I will say that maybe I won't say least favorite, but the thing that was not necessarily I'm more of a people person. Like starting a podcast, obviously, I'm sure you and I both have the same type of personality where we like to talk to people, and I like to talk to people, a lot of people. And so if I'm looking at a piece of paper or a computer screen, I'm not talking to somebody. And so so plan reviews sometimes is a little bit of a challenge for me in that regard, because I like to be more interactive with people, and so as an inspector, I really enjoyed it. And I like traveling to place to place and see, no 2 days were the same, and so I was able to see a lot of different things, a lot of cool things over the course of my career. Heck, I remember I was working in Colorado one time. I was able to hike to halfway up the side of Pikes Peak to take a look at a cabin because it was on federal property, and I had to do an inspection. And I'm like, well, I'm going to have fun with this, I guess. And so we hiked up there and had a good time with that. But, getting to do stuff like that, that's always kind of one of those things, or getting to see the inner workings of things as they get built. So
we have this picture behind me that tank, that above ground sphere.
Uh-huh.
It's the Air Liquide 480,000 gallon liquid hydrogen sphere.
Oh, wow.
And they reform natural gas to liquid hydrogen. And like you said, like seeing that job come together and going to the top of that sphere or to the top of the flare. They wanted me out on the job, and I'd been out there so many times, and they're like, well, can you come out? And I'm like, oh, I'm kind of busy that day. And they're like, come on, Val. And I'm like, yeah, I can't make it. And they're like, we'll let you go to the top of the flare. I'm like, okay, I'm on. And so I went out there, but interacting with people is sure a good part of our job that we do.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I would say even, in our, current, areas, being a fire marshal and you being the building official, being able to get out and like you mentioned, being the face of the organization, but also too being able to kind of develop the organization, and be able to make things kind of work a little bit better. I always tell people, change is always going to happen, and we try to make incremental change to make things just a little bit better. But don't make change just to make change. So we always have fun with that. Now, you mentioned the self-certification program and how you use that for Amazon. So what was kind of the drive behind that development? And, can you kind of walk us through that program a bit?
Yeah, I just did a self-cert class yesterday virtually, and so our self-certification program, I think we have like 110 people on our list. But we had a developer come to town early on in like 2008, 2009. I think all the building officials at the time went down to Phoenix, talked to, Mo Glancy down there, the building official, and, got an idea of what the Phoenix program looked like. After the downturn of the economy, Phoenix needed help with their plan review and stuff, and so they implemented their program. And they brought it back here, and there was a couple programs that sprouted up from it. And then fast forward to 2017, we had a developer come to town, and it was pretty much like the mayor's like, go down and find out what this program is about and see if you can't, create a program that works for North Las Vegas and meets our goals. And so we did. 4 of us went down to Phoenix and talked to Mo and walked through that program. And we came back, and what I really like about North Las Vegas Self-Cert is that we were able to author it. Like when you have a new program, somebody can say, hey, do video inspection. Hey, do self-cert. But the importance is authoring it with your team, right? Having everybody provide input so that everybody plays a part in it. And so we came back and we created this program where engineer or architect, it's like the civil, the structural, and the architect, they can be a team on a project, and from the on-sites to vertical construction, they can get their permit in 4 days, and they can And then after the 4 days of getting the permit on the vertical side, we do an audit. We do a 30-day audit, and they can be out there working, so they can schedule their schedule. You know, like you ever see like that job site schedule where it has the little drop downs, and there's that big gap at the beginning from submittal to permit date, and they don't really know, you know, what that is. And so with self-cert, if they're prepared on the front end, they can give us all their documentation. They can get their permit and get out there, and we do the audit and the review from the structurals. Like, we don't start at the beginning of the architecturals and start flipping through elevations. We go straight, you know, to what's going on in the field, and we do like a high-level look in the first 4 days and see type of construction, use and occupancy, you know, that kind of a thing. Can the building be where it's at? And then and then we spend the next 30 days auditing it, and we start right where they're starting out there, so that if there's anything that comes up, we can address it right away.
So how does that fit into like the planning aspect? Because I know a lot, you know, with a lot of larger projects, they got to go through the entitlement phase and do a lot of things through the planning phase or the planning process. So how does that fit in, or is that before the self-certification phase?
So my director, Mark Jordan, is going to hate me if I don't say this right. So the city of North Las Vegas has streamlined their approval on the planning side to where there's a whole component of administrative approval that doesn't have to go to Planning Commission and City Council.
Okay.
And so what at one time, say your big box warehouse distribution center, whatever, development, where at one time that would have to go through entitlements and go to Planning Commission and go to City Council. If it's compliant, you know, it's the zoning's good, there's nothing that needs special use based on the Nevada Administrative Code or the hazardous applications. There's nothing that needs special use or special entitlement. Then they can administratively approve that.
Okay. So well, that actually helps streamline it a bit.
So the civil side of the house is they get a soils report, a drainage study, a traffic study, and the water network analysis. And by doing those four things, they can allow them to, at a point, move on site and do early grading, and then bond the off-sites. And once they bond the off-sites, they can move on-site and self-certify their on-site development and their vertical construction. Okay. Yeah, no, in 4 days, that's pretty fast turnaround on building permits. And so, and it's not like there is still an audit and you're still taking a look at those plans. Now, when you encounter, maybe a comment that needs to be addressed, I would imagine that there is that back and forth. They get the plan check letter, they make the necessary revisions, and then they upload those into the approved plan set. They do. I think, as best I can explain it, is there's plans that people draw, and they want to draw a picture, right? So what does the building code actually say has to show on the plan? What's the information that you really need to build that building? And then there's information that they put on so that the architect and the engineer can give a picture, so that the owners can see a better picture, so the inspectors and the contractors can, install it in the field. And so during the audit process, we look at it based on a point system and a higher level of review as it relates to for example, exit analysis or travel distance or door hardware. We look at that as an item. And so once we do that audit and we send it out, they come back with corrections. But they're already out there in the field working. And so as long as there's nothing that stops them, this footing is the wrong size, or this tilt wall building isn't thick enough, or your calculations on this is wrong. We have a good amount of time to get those audits done. And we have this amazing structural engineer, Edgar Surla, that just is a workhorse as it relates to getting through structural plans and the audits. And so it works out. It really works out. We've been really successful. I think, the statistics of 2020, I think, was like, 37 projects, and I forget the value of those projects, but it was super high, and there's never been, I think there's been one time that they had to change a storm drain, and I think that's like it. Like Phoenix had a couple experiences where they had to change some stuff, and the program really, it is a higher level of service, and so it really is that engineer takes more time to make sure that his projects are complete to where you don't have those issues in the field.
Yeah, so you're not getting that 90% complete plan set, just so that way they can start the permit, that they're coming in with the complete package. So that way, then hopefully it'll help streamline it, downstream a bit. So that's good. Yeah. So we all take different paths. We talked a little bit about your path throughout your career. What are some notable experiences that you've had throughout your career that kind of help shape you as the building official?
Notable experiences in my life, in my career. Well, as an electrician, I had those you only do it one time mistakes, where there was only ever one time that I didn't take the insulation off of a ground that I stuck in the ground for 50 feet and backfilled. I only ever did that one time.
Oh, wow.
I only ever didn't tape the neutral before I cut it one time. And so there's those things. But when I started with I had an electrical cert and a building cert, and when I came into the city, we had a master electrician that worked here. And I am a master electrician, but we had one, and so he was like the go-to electric guy. So I kind of shifted off into the building code, and I ran with it, Tim. I have an ability to, it all boils down to the day in the chair. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We can all have all these letters. We can have all these certifications.
Yep.
We can have all this stuff that it says, look at how amazing we are on paper. But so I have always thought that I've never can learn enough. I've always thought that there's always more to do. How can I continue to help? And so, I think just that drive of, and then now that, I sit with way too many certs, and I sit with all that I've accomplished, but I'm knocking on, 5 or 6, 7 years more left in my career before I retire. Is how can I give that to those trainees coming up so that I can help them? The notable projects, we do a lot of, we don't have a lot of big and the weird. My husband calls the Clark County strip the big and the weird, the Las Vegas Strip, Clark County. And he did a lot of work on the Las Vegas Strip through Clark County as a fire protection engineer for a long time. But we have a lot of unique commercial industrial, a lot of fire modeling, a lot of time progress analysis, and really being able to, wander your way through those kinds of conversations has been just so rewarding for me. To be able to, to understand what we're talking about, to be able to have something to offer to the conversation, and to move the city of North Las Vegas, which is, light and heavy commercial industrial. We have a lot of residential. We have the Apex Industrial Park where the old Fairday came, and they were going to build the Faraday electric car out there, and so they started work out there. And so now we have water and sanitary sewers getting up there, and so we have a lot of bigger industrial type plant fabrication buildings that come into North Las Vegas.
Okay. No, yeah. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of different things, not only just in the city of North Las Vegas, but also in and around that region. Like you said, the strip and the, kind of those unique, pieces of our architecture, that are out there that you can definitely kind of at least, see some of that. And, I'm sure some of that does bleed into where you're at as well. So, throughout the course of your career, what are some of those bigger changes that you've seen? I mean, we're experiencing this pandemic right now, and that's kind of expedited a lot of different digital changes that we've all made. But what are some of those changes that you've seen or you observed, from the time that you became an inspector till till your time now as the building official?
I think the biggest change that I've seen is perspective. Is how do we all work together for the end result? I know there was a time when, and I hate to say that, am I saying that there was a time when, a government official would say, I'm right, you're wrong, just do it. I was reading that inspector skills book yesterday with one of my inspectors, and it had all the do not says, do not say this, do not say this.
Right.
And some of the things that was in there was was there really a time when we would say, it doesn't matter if you do it that way, I don't like it, so do it the way I'm telling you to anyway. So I think that's probably the biggest change. We have grown, when I got to the city of North Las Vegas in southern Nevada, the lake and the dam was overflowing. The the overflows at Lake Mead and Hoover Dam were going down, and now it's 150 feet lower. And so that evolution of watching this community grow, and then our involvement, like I came into like code development and stuff, and SNICC and the local chapter as a past president, like in 2009-ish, and started going to national code change and stuff like that. And so really seeing what North Las Vegas, what those old-time people that are gone have built as it relates to the Southern Nevada chapter, as it relates to EduCode, as it relates to, the Southern Nevada Building Officials Organization, and the consistency that we try to commit to. Has been a huge change. We work really well together. We all communicate. I don't know that I've seen any other big changes other than just that growth of the economy here. We were the city of North Las Vegas had the most foreclosures in all of the United States. It was 1 out of 7 houses was in foreclosure during the downturn of the economy, and I was so blessed to be able to continue working and to be a part of that, bringing it back, bringing everything back. But I remember seeing, lives change here, and people not have the ability to work. Our mayor says it. He says, there was a time when, your mother and your father, they both worked in the hospitality industry, and one might have worked at, the MGM, and one might have worked at the Mirage. And so when the downturn hit, they both lost their jobs. And so then they didn't have anything. And so the mayor of North Las Vegas John Lee, he likes to really treat North Las Vegas as a business and make it to where it's not like everybody in the household, if one person loses that industry, that the whole household is going to fall apart.
Right.
And so I think my biggest impact is seeing the world, or seeing Southern Nevada come back, seeing people back in their homes, seeing, that little mom and pop shop come together. And then you see that e-commerce world come. And so now we're watching all of these, brick and mortar buildings kind of go away to e-commerce, and how can we continue to show up for those smaller businesses so that they can continue to thrive, so that our economy, our community can thrive.
Yeah, no, I think that's, definitely key. You hit on the buzzwords not to say, especially when you're out doing an inspection. And I always tell my inspectors, we're here to kind of sell the aspect of fire safety and work together. Because I've heard way too many horror stories of people just going out and saying kind of like that, where I don't like it, so you're going to have to redo it, or you're going to have to change the way that you did it. And I will say that there has been quite the evolution over the course of the last 20, 25, maybe even 30 years, as we take a look at code enforcement. It's not so much, it's not as rigid as it once was. And I will say that a lot of what we see in the building and fire codes, there is, I don't want to say ambiguity, but there is a little bit more gray, and it does give the code official a little bit more flexibility to work with these individuals. And I know, I mean, we see a lot of different performance-based designs, anywhere from your e-commerce and those logistics hubs and those types of things, because the code addresses some of it, but it seems like it's perpetually behind as we take a look at it. So, but no, I can definitely. But like you mentioned though too, we all come together, and how do we support each other and continue as a community to thrive? And I think that's key as well. So. So one of the questions I always ask people is, building relationships. So your department or division is the building safety and fire prevention. So is the city fire prevention, anywhere from new construction to annual inspections, also housed within the building safety and fire prevention division?
It is, and I think across the nation there's different perspectives on that. As the building official coming in 2016, we were building in fire safety. We do have fire prevention inspectors in the building in our division. Over the years, I've made every effort to really allow the fire prevention inspector to feel that camaraderie, that visual perspective of enforcement, that fire prevention inspectors, they like to be under fire department, and they do for a lot of reasons. I mean, like suppression and prevention, they go together hand in hand, and prevention needs to be a part of suppression in order for suppression to understand what's happening in the building that's being built. Like I was just talking to the fire chief Calhoun this morning about a specific alternate to a 400% increase on an H3. And
oh, wow.
But to let him know, like, this is how the building is being built.
Right.
So our fire prevention inspectors, we have 4, and I have 1 fire protection specialist, 1 fire plans examiner. And so it's not super big. We've gone through those growing pains and those changes to be a division. Our fire prevention inspectors are uniformed with badges, and they have their own logos, their patches. We want to, make everybody, that camaraderie and that need to feel a part of, is a big component of having that workplace environment that where everybody gets along and there's not any tension. And so we always worked really close with the fire inspectors, as it relates to stocking, training, TCO, all of that. We've always been like super close with the fire prevention inspectors, and so we're going to work together closely no matter where we sit with them, but it's a good spot for them to be at North Las Vegas under one division. And so I think we do a really good job of being that building safety and fire prevention team. And I think they're happy at this point. The fire prevention inspectors are happy with all the effort that we make to let them be fire prevention inspectors.
Right.
I mean, like, I can't get my building inspectors to wear a uniform. I mean, you have like 12 inspectors, and 6 of them want uniforms and 6 of them don't. And so for me to really listen to everybody's desires and try to make that come to fruition for them has been, it's been a real rewarding part of me being the building official.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I will say that there is definitely a lot of overlap between fire prevention and building and code enforcement. I mean, there's a lot of chapters in the building and fire code that are almost identical to everything that we do, and there is a lot of enforcement, and there is some perspective and that each one of us can share. And you mentioned how you build relationships or working through that relationship with the fire chief and having continuous dialogue with the fire chief on just different things. And how that might impact them. A 400% increase on an H3 definitely is a big change. I can honestly say I don't think I've seen that here. But
well, to put it into perspective, it's a 65,000 square foot H3 room in a 650,000 square foot building. So, and the product and the alternate request and the the fire protection engineering firm that created the alternate, and then we had it peer reviewed so that just to make sure that the right eyes get on something. Like when we ask for alternates, we really get that opportunity to ask what's equivalent as it relates to the code. And so I think we've worked through this one, and there's some unique stuff that's been provided to have the fire prevention team, the fire department, and the building owners and the tenants all be happy with the end result and them getting a room of such size.
Yeah, that's enormous, and there's a lot of people that have to come together in order for that to happen. So, speaking of that, how do you engage with those maybe outside your organization and build those relationships?
On a professional level?
Yeah, on a professional level. Yeah.
Well, when I became there was a whole different group of building officials, and there's 7 Southern Nevada building officials. So there's Clark County, Vegas, Henderson, North Las Vegas, Boulder City, Nye County, and Pahrump. Nye County and Mesquite. Sorry, Jeff. And so, it's small, but we all train together. We all work together. If I have something in North Las Vegas that I have a question, how does everybody else, view this? We email back and forth all the time, or we meet at Snowbo and SNICC, and so that group of building officials that was here when I was plans exam, they've all retired. And so there's this new group of building officials, and I know that you spoke to Kevin, recently, and he's got a retirement date.
Yes, he told me about that.
Yeah.
I was a little bummed when I heard that. So,
and the director of Clark County has a retirement date, and so there's going to be
I have not talked to him
there's going to be a new shift take place here.
Yeah.
And so that'll be interesting in the next 5 years. All the building officials that are in place, a good portion of them will have moved on to whether it's out of the game or as a consultant, right? I want to be out of the game. I want to be, out of the game, riding my motorcycle and sewing and playing with my chickens. I want to be with my husband at home. And so we really make that effort to communicate, to professionally work together. We're all a part of EduCode, so that brings us together in itself. And then everybody uses Clark County graciously allows us the presentations room from time to time. So a lot of the local training opportunities come together at the Clark County Building Department. So it works together. We really do build our relationships. I think we all have something that we bring to the table. I mean, like I'm the only building official that's a master electrician, and Kevin's a civil engineer, and Majid's a structural engineer, and so we all bring, those things that make us as a team, a lot more knowledge, a lot more versed in being able to work through any issues that we might face as a Southern Nevada community.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very tight-knit between all of you, and you can definitely pick up the phone. I always have those friends that, throughout the area that I know that I can pick up the phone, give them a call, and say, hey, what do you think about this? Because I'm sure it may be coming your way as well. So, and being able to have those conversations is always a good thing to have. So, being part of, since this is the ICC Region 1 Radio, I should probably ask, how do you engage or how do you connect with the International Code Council?
My first code hearing was in 2009, and I paid my way, and I chased down this code, and it's so funny because as an electrician, I used to I called it my 32-ounce hole saw. But it was actually like, a 32-ounce framing hammer. And so I started in code development, in 2009, and I ran through, 703.6 as my token code. I think they made a little frame thing of it, but to identify fire-resistant construction, and so we always get, I try to be involved, but, sometimes we get that, that fear of not being right or wrong, but just that, stage fright or whatever it is. We were on a meeting before this meeting, and I had something to say, or I had some input, I had something to contribute, and I was afraid to contribute it, and so finally I just contributed. I'm like, okay, this is my perspective, and it's so locally, through Cabo and Whipplebo and Region 1, and with Sam and Sam Palmer has just been and Clark County in general has always been a big involvement as it relates to the local ICC industry. Our local chapter, they're the biggest, and they have the most that they can offer as it relates to man hours and stuff. And so having, North Las Vegas, participate on the board, one of my combination inspectors, Linda Gallant, is the incoming second vice president to SNICC. And, and then, hopefully I have a succession plan coming as a building official that can succeed me. But we all do come together, as it relates to code development. My husband's really involved with code development, and I hate to say his name on the air, but most people know Doug Evans. And so
I do know Doug.
So
yes.
Most people know Doug, and so I get to learn a lot about code development from him, and the people at Clark County, Jim Guerin, Sam Palmer, they're Kevin, Mike Cunningham, Majid. We could pull people out of every local jurisdiction that has a real specialized look at codes and codes development. And so I know that, the last person to run through the ICC board was Ron Lynn. There was some push to, some other local talent to run through the SNIC or through the ICC board. And so I still am involved. I always liked the code hearings kind of more than the ABM, but I go to the ABM and I represent, Southern Nevada as one of the building officials, and we push through codes as best we can. This last code cycle just went so fast, and we didn't have the amount of involvement that we did under the last code cycle before the downturn in the economy. So it's harder to bring like all these specialties together to get them on a committee, like, the ICC LA Basin region, that what they do and the time that they have to put in that and the involvement that they have. Like if we could all, use that as an example for involvement at a national level, then I think our voices as Region 1, would be heard, because I think we have 3 chapters in Nevada, right? We have Northern Nevada, Southern Nevada, and FPAN.
And the FPAN,
FPAN, yeah. So our voice can be heard right along with all those chapters in California and Hawaii.
Yeah, and I will say, so I serve on our Building and Fire Code Advisory Committee through Northern California Fire Prevention Officers, or Cal Chiefs, just as one of the sections there. And it is a lot of work to get involved in that code development process, and anywhere from reviewing code proposals, providing input on those code proposals, and from there being able to, did I get this one right? Am I seeing this intent right? And so being able to be effective, and then going to the code hearings. I mean, and once you finish one code cycle, you're going into the next code cycle. You get through the group A, now you're into the group B. Now we're talking about residential code. We're talking about all of those other things that weren't included in the group A. And so it's a lot of work, and how do you keep it all straight? So now we talk about, being able to kind of keep things straight, and how things are always evolving. I mean, with what we had in this last code cycle, there was some digital code hearings, and then we had in-person in Pittsburgh. But how do you stay involved in informed into the many changes that within the code, within the building and fire code, areas?
Stay involved to the changes that take place, other than like participating in code hearings and listening to testimony. And, my first code hearing, was back in the day when they gave pins. They had pins.
Oh.
They didn't do that at this last code hearing in Pittsburgh. We were there. But that first code hearing, I traded 145 pins. So I was able to talk to 145 different people. And so locally we stay involved. I mean, you get out there on your specialty items. Hey, can you look at this? Hey, can you look at that? But on a broader spectrum, through EduCode and through code updates and code adoption and amendment process, I think that we have a good opportunity to stay up to date on our codes, to learn, not to remember what the building code said when I took the test under the 1997 building code, but what does the 2018, 2021, 2024 building code say? Yeah. What are the differences in that? And there are changes that come in and you're like, when did that happen? And so I'm pretty good, especially electrically, I'm pretty good about seeing when the changes take place and really analyzing the analysis to the changes. So that we can see what's the most important things that we can't forget. When there was a time when, travel distance was 200 feet for S1, F1, and then it went to 400 feet, and then that, I forget his name, but he worked for Boeing. He did, Greg Keith, he did the 1,000 feet or whatever in an aircraft hangar, and then it went back to, 200 feet and then back to 400 feet. And so, which code are we on? So for me, when we look at the codes that are coming, are more important to me than looking at the codes that are past. So if a customer comes in and wants to have a provision of an upcoming code, then it gives you the opportunity to review that code and see does it work for what they're doing, and then move forward in that manner, as it relates to staying involved. I mean, we go to EduCode, all of my staff, I send all of our staff to EduCode every year. I have to maintain, I can't tell you how many certifications I have to maintain. I think I have to maintain, I think if I'm strategic, really, really strategic, that I can get through my certifications with 80 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 80 hours. And that includes, NFPA Pro Board F1 and Master Electrician and my IATMOS certs and all my ICC certs. And so I have to continually continue my education in order to maintain my certification status.
Yeah, and that's one way that you can definitely stay up to date on all the changing things that change within our profession, and EduCode. I've been to EduCode once, and I will tell you that. I've only been.
Al Ellis, do you hear him? I'm putting this out there. He said once.
I've been to EduCode once, but I am 8 hours away, so it is a little bit of a drive if I want to drive, but typically I'll fly from here. But yeah, I did go, gosh, when was it? 2016, 2017?
You didn't even come in 2019 when we were the chapter, when we were the ABM?
I I at that moment my boss did, but I was unable to make it that time. So so I wasn't the fire marshal at that point in my career. So, but yeah, I did make it at least once, and I'll have to try to make it again, because I will tell you, it is one of the best conferences I've been to. You bring a lot of people from around the country to that, and so, but now I'll have to take a look, because I think our California Fire Prevention Officers Conference is the same
week. I think it is.
Yeah, so I may not be able to make EDUCODE, because I got to be there for that one too. So, but if not, but I think it's in SoCal, so maybe I can jump over there at least maybe a day or so.
EDUCODE's great. Work that the Southern Nevada chapter has done. This is, I think, 25 years of EDUCODE, or is it? So the work that the EDUCODE has done, and the dependence on the volunteers that come, and then the different people that have taken the helm of EDUCODE and ran forward with it, whether it be Greg Franklin or Neil Burning, or Al Ellis, or whoever it is that's really helped that move forward. It's like second to none, although there are some other code opportunities as it relates to week-long training seminars and stuff throughout throughout the United States, including the summer codes and the spring codes and the Colorado chapter and that kind of stuff, and we're all close to those people as well, because from code making. But EDUCODE's a good deal as it relates to education and networking. Did I just plug EDUCODE for Al? Al, I just plugged EDUCODE.
Well, we should run the commercial. And this podcast is brought to you by EDUCODE. So I have no sponsorships on this podcast, so we're always looking. No, I'm kidding.
There you go.
So now we talk about the different things, but one of the things we kind of hit on a little bit was the pandemic and COVID, and how that has impacted a lot of us. And I attended one of your webinars through ICC on kind of the changes that you have implemented and some of those things that you see moving forward. So can you describe some of those things that you guys have done to help address the response to the pandemic? We're currently in another wave. A lot of my staff now are working remotely. Some are responded from home to job sites and those types of things. So can you talk a little bit about what you guys are doing there in North Las Vegas?
I can. It might take just a couple minutes, but we went from a permitting software change in December of 2019 to go home for 12 weeks in March of 2020. And so we had just implemented InterGov. We had just implemented, Bluebeam, electronic review submittal. And so to help our customers in March of 2018, we did 100% of our inspections from home for 12 weeks. And we did all remote inspection. And it was like 11,500 or something like that inspections. And by doing that, and by helping the community and really identifying what we have to go look at in person during that time, it all didn't fit in remote inspection, but it did allow our projects to move forward. And if there was a specific project that needed an on-site inspection, I could go out, or one of the fire inspectors could go out, and so it opened that door to see what can we do video. And so, I'll say this in Kevin's behalf. Kevin was working on something, and he asked me for a favor, and I don't remember what the favor was, but I said, sure, I'll do that if you let me run with video inspection first, because he was heading there. Kevin was heading there. And so I ran with it, and so it was like the luck of the draw. But after doing some webinars, after responding to an electronic world, after managing that hybrid world, implementing the two worlds of all the do's and don'ts, or good and bad, of remote versus in-person business, I can say that it's way overdue, right? It's been way overdue. There's I could plug Basim. I forget his last name. He's out of Dubai, and they have gone into buildings with video cameras, taken live videos of buildings, and then taken them back and stuck them into 3D software that has really allowed them to do all their inspection process, in detail. And so it's not something that's new. It's, you mentioned change, right? You said something about change, and what I say about change is, I say there is no pain in change itself. There's only pain in resistance to change. So So now we do about 300 video inspections a week. I have an inspector. Everybody gets a chance. Everybody gets to play in the video world, but primarily it's all the homeowner stuff. It keeps the homeowner from having to be home from work and having to take multiple days off, and it's really getting. It was really getting the industry on board about do the job the same day you call this inspection, the same day. Go out there one time and be done. And so. So currently, we all came back, kind of to the office, and you did talk about this surge in the pandemic, and recently, I think yesterday they announced that the Clark County School District is closing for the next 5 days. So. Okay. So some of our staff is going to work from home. I think there's some departments in the city that continue to work remotely, but it's really that bringing them two together, and there's pros and cons of all of it, getting the person involved so they don't feel left at home and not having, the isolation, become a part of. But I think that, I could say what's next, like what is next as it relates to efficiencies, not necessarily, always remote and stuff, but what's next as it relates to efficiencies of how software and computers can catapult us into that next stage of efficiencies for the customers. And so, what I did was I involved my inspectors. I said, hey, what do you guys think about, remote inspection? And this was early on, like before the pandemic, and in like July of 2019. And they said, well, we like this, and we don't like this. And so it's okay, so let's start with this and this and not this. And we wrote the program, and we got a little software going, and we started doing it. And pretty soon they're like, well, hey, let's do this and this and this, and so they started, adding into the things. And so now they could have a job where the inspector is a commercial combo, and he's on the job every day, and then they get a phone call, hey, can you help me on this? And so we're really able to, in real time, help. In real time during the pandemic, we had to make changes to like fit. I mean, do you remember when they would drop the plans off outside of your building, and then you had to leave them out there for 3 days and spray them, with some kind of disinfectant before you could bring them in, and then the next day it was like, no, you have to, can't drop them off outside. You have to do it here. And then the next day it was like, but maybe try to do this. And so it was like real-time changes. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't say, the work that our PAC manager, Tony Vibble, has done as it relates to like that continuing changing things in real time to make it more effective for us and the community.
Yeah, no, like you just said, real-time changes, because it always changes. Like I think it came in on a Thursday morning, and by Thursday afternoon, I was sending out an email saying, "Hey, welcome, welcome back to the ever-evolving, changes in the pandemic, and now you can telework if needed, and we're going to try to do what we can to minimize exposures." And so it is one of those things that it changes almost, very rapidly. You just you have to, and like you just said, don't be resistant to it, because it will happen. But there is some technology features that we've definitely implemented over the course of the last 18 months, 2 years now, anywhere from virtual meeting platforms and teleworking to digital plan review to remote inspections to, I mean, there is so much change that has happened in 2 years. And I will say that I have seen where it has definitely made us a lot more effective in meeting the needs of the customer. So
what really worked for me as well was I have, 12 building inspectors and 4 fire inspectors. It's not like this huge amount of people, but it was 12 different personalities and 12 different experiences as it relates to computer knowledge and efficiencies and stuff. I mean, like, a lot of I'm not the best in the computer. I can manage my way through, but I'm an old electrician. So, so I let everybody do it the way they wanted to. And there is some really great, remote inspection software out there. I get calls from the guy pretty regularly, and I don't necessarily have the budget right now to put into that to where you can, GIS and circle circle the problem and take stills. And we really just rely on the inspector and the customer. And so we don't archive, we don't keep video. We just do the inspection like we would if we were in person. And for right now, I could put it into perspective of I did a big commercial building 10 years ago. And if I'm in court about this big commercial building I did 10 years ago, they don't have no archived video of what I did. It's going to be, at the best of my knowledge, it appears that this is what happened. So I really let the guys and girls, I really let them figure out the best way for each person. And it's amazingly different for each person. One person has a way that works perfect for them, and then this person, their way is perfect for them, but it's completely different. And so I try not to get too much into the management of that and let my staff do it on their own.
Well, and so I think that you're hitting on maybe one of those keys is being flexible, and not necessarily micromanaging everything, but being flexible to meet the needs of everyone else. I mean, that's been one of those things. Like I have noticed. You hit on it that one staff member does it this way, another staff member may do it this way, but we still get to that same goal. But being flexible is always important. So I have one last question as we're approaching an hour of discussion. I told you this wouldn't be so bad. And so one of the things that I do have a question on is goals for this upcoming year. A lot of people set New Year's resolutions for, in January, and we're talking here on January 12th. So what are some goals that you have, in this upcoming year professionally?
Professionally, for my team, I have goals. Me professionally, I just, try to maintain and continue to learn and to grow, but I'm an overachiever. So, there's some things I need to stop at some point. But for my team, I have some really specific goals. I would like to see, real time over the counter electronic plan review and to put that into perspective, like from at that moment, like do plan review, planning, zoning, building, pack, get a permit, and go on. Just like there were the days when people would come into the office and they would go to the departments, we'd do the counter work, and then they'd be gone. So, that real-time over-the-counter plans exam, I would really like to, I've started a training program for inspectors who can come in with 1 or 2 certs, and then they can train up, and by training up, they automatically become full commercial combos, and I can use them in that perspective. We've just tried to update, we've written an update to our municipal code, our administrative code, for the building, and getting that adopted. I mean, it's like, so there's always those, short-term and long-term goals. Short-term goals is to, get everybody through this and with the less sickness as possible. And then those long-term goals is, how can we be more efficient? How can we, be more cost-effective? How can we offer our customers and still not sacrifice the code, not sacrifice the life safety and the necessity, of all the codes that we adopt, So there's always something that's next on my list. Like this one is get through the podcast, and you're like, you're done, and then you can move on to that next goal that I can really focus my attention on and just try to help my team be the best that they can be. It's surely not me. Like I may be the building official and I may sit in this office, but I'm only as good at North Las Vegas as the team that helps me do everything that we do, and so it's really like this big group effort together, us working together to be the city of North Las Vegas, building safety and fire prevention.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, you made it through. So, well, is there anything else you'd like to add before we come to a close? You hit on EduCode. So do you know the dates of EduCode for 2022?
Hold on, Monica. February 28th to March 4th.
All
You're
right.
welcome, Al. I just want to shout out to the Southern Nevada building officials and SNICC, and the group of people that we have here is close knit, and we work together, and I just have great respect for all of my colleagues and for all of the people that get an opportunity to teach me to be a better. I'll end with this, to teach me to be a better person. Like Kevin taught me something. I'll end with this. I'll give Kevin kudos. He's one of my favorites. So Kevin changes his message on his phone every day. Every day Kevin comes in and says, hey, you've reached Kevin McCosker, City of Vegas. And so every day when I come in, I change my message on my phone. I say I'm in the office today, leave a message. If I'm not in the office, I leave a message. I say I'm not in the office, and I'm available. So I'm available on phone, nights and weekends and holidays. I'm available through email. And I make that effort to to be there for our community. So thank you, Southern Nevada. Thank you, Region 1. Thank you, ICC and SNICC and Snowbo. Thank you, Tim Spears, for haranguing me into this.
Well, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you then to promote and try to recruit other people to also join us on maybe an upcoming episode of Region 1 Radio. So I keep sending out emails. I know that people are listening. So I keep sending out emails. So eventually I will track you down, and I will try to get you on an episode. So nice. Valerie, thank you. I really appreciate it. Like I said, that brings this episode to a close. I want to thank Valerie for joining us. We hope, here from Region 1 that you value the insight and the experiences that were shared today. And hopefully this helps you as a code professional. But maybe if you're not a code professional, you're kind of looking at getting into the field. We hope that this is kind of a good platform for you to listen to. As always, thanks for listening. And if you're watching, you can definitely watch this on YouTube if you have been watching. But please, enjoy the show. Please, if you did enjoy it, please rate us on iTunes, all those good things, podcast, drop us a line. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, and all the other major platforms that are available. So Valerie, again, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Bye.